The galactic communication array hummed with an intensity that suggested the universe itself was holding its breath. Holographic displays flickered with images of devastation so complete that they defied comprehension. Star systems reduced to cosmic dust. Entire civilizations erased in moments. The void swarm moved like a ravenous cancer through the galaxy, consuming everything in its path. In the central chamber of the Galactic Council, representatives from thousands of advanced civilizations sat in stunned silence. Their collective technological might, accumulated over tens of thousands of years, had proven utterly ineffective against this mysterious threat. Quantum shields shattered like glass. Hyper-advanced weapon systems became nothing more than momentary distractions. The most sophisticated defense networks collapsed within moments of engagement. Ambassador Serena Koldar, a senior diplomat from the Crystalline Confederacy, adjusted her translucent communication interface. Her six-fingered hands moved with a precision that belied the desperation brewing beneath her calm exterior. Centuries of diplomatic training had prepared her for countless scenarios, but nothing could have readied her for this moment of absolute vulnerability. "We have exhausted every known strategy," she announced, her voice carrying through multiple linguistic translation matrices. "Our collective technological arsenal has been reduced to less than 17% operational capacity. The void swarm continues its advance with mathematical precision, consuming entire sectors faster than we can mount a meaningful resistance." The holographic display shifted, showing a three-dimensional representation of galactic space. Pulsing red markers indicated areas already consumed, while rapidly shrinking blue zones represented the remaining free territories. The pattern was terrifyingly familiar, a systematic consuming of resources, civilizations, and potentially all known life. Junior diplomatic attaché Marcus Breen leaned forward, his neural interface scrolling through countless data streams. "We've identified only one potential variable we haven't fully explored," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Earth." A collective murmur swept through the chamber. Earth, a planet most advanced civilizations had long considered primitive, unremarkable, and barely worthy of serious scientific consideration. A world of contradictions. A species that had only recently begun exploring its own solar system, yet demonstrated remarkable adaptability and unexpected potential. The senior council members exchanged significant glances. Humans were an anomaly. A species that didn't follow any predictable developmental pattern observed in other galactic civilizations. They were simultaneously destructive and creative, violent and compassionate, technologically limited yet intellectually boundless. "We have diplomatic protocols dating back 3,000 standard cycles," an elder representative from the Quantum Harmonics Collective interjected. "Formal first contact requires extensive preparation, cultural assessment, technological compatibility evaluations." Serena Koldar's response was immediate and sharp. "We do not have the luxury of our traditional protocols. We have approximately 6 standard solar cycles before the void swarm reaches the central galactic corridor. Our choices are now binary: make contact with humanity or face complete extinction." The chamber fell silent. The weight of millennia of galactic history hung in the balance. Countless civilizations had risen and fallen, but never had they faced a threat of such comprehensive destruction. The void swarm consumed not just physical matter, but seemed to absorb the very essence of technological and biological systems. Marcus Dream began preparing the transmission. It would be unlike any diplomatic communication in galactic history. No elaborate introductions, no carefully crafted linguistic bridges, just a raw, unfiltered plea for survival. As the communication array powered up, something unexpected happened. The quantum encryption algorithms began to shift. Instead of the standard diplomatic frequencies, the transmission started to adapt. It was almost as if the very method of communication was becoming something entirely new, unpredictable, dynamic, alive. The first message would be simple, direct, a challenge and an invitation. "We require your assistance. Humanity may be our last hope." Outside the council chamber, Through the vast windows, the star systems continued their silent dance, unaware that a single planet, a world most considered insignificant, might hold the key to preventing the most comprehensive extinction event in recorded galactic history. The transmission was sent. Now, they would wait. The underground research facility buzzed with an energy that defied the early morning hour. Dr. Elena Rodriguez studied the alien transmission with a mixture of scientific curiosity and barely contained excitement. Most of her colleagues would have approached the data with traditional academic caution, but Elena had always been different. Her team represented a unique cross-section of human potential. Dr. Kamala Hassan, a quantum systems expert, leaned over a holographic display that shimmered with complex mathematical patterns. To his left, Dr. Maya Chen manipulated advanced visualization algorithms, her fingers dancing across translucent interfaces. They were more than colleagues. They were problem solvers united by an inexplicable sense of purpose. "The encryption is unlike anything we've ever seen," Camille muttered, adjusting his glasses. "It's not just a communication protocol. It's almost alive." Elena nodded, her mind racing faster than her words could follow. The alien transmission wasn't just a message. It was a complex adaptive system that seemed to change its fundamental structure with each analysis. Where traditional cryptographers would see an impossible challenge, she saw an extraordinary puzzle waiting to be understood. "Look at the quantum entanglement patterns," Maya interjected. Her display shifted, revealing intricate geometric designs that pulsed with an almost organic rhythm. "These aren't just communication protocols. They're more like living mathematics." The global scientific community had been thrown into chaos since the transmission arrived. Military strategists, academic researchers, and government officials found themselves in unprecedented territory. This was first contact, but not in any way humanity had ever imagined. International cooperation emerged with surprising speed. Funding barriers dissolved. Competitive research institutes suddenly found themselves sharing data with unprecedented openness. The alien transmission had done what decades of diplomatic efforts could not. It had unified human scientific endeavor. Dr. Rodriguez pulled up a comprehensive analysis of the transmission's underlying structure. Each layer revealed something more extraordinary. The message contained multiple levels of information, mathematical equations that seemed to describe entire technological ecosystems, cultural communication patterns that suggested complex social structures, and hints of scientific principles far beyond current human understanding. "It's an invitation," Elena whispered, more to herself than to her colleagues. "But not just a diplomatic message. It's a challenge." The research facility's security systems detected multiple high-level access attempts from various global intelligence agencies. Normally, such intrusions would trigger immediate lockdown protocols. But today, something was different. The systems seemed to adapt, creating secure communication channels that allowed controlled information sharing. Camille's neural interface began to process the data at speeds that would have been impossible just months ago. The alien transmission was teaching them new ways of thinking, new approaches to complex problem-solving that challenged everything they understood about information and communication. "The mathematical models are recursive," Maya observed. "Each time we analyze a section, the underlying structure transforms. It's like the message is learning from our attempts to understand it." Outside the research facility, the world continued its normal routine. People commuted to work. Children attended school. Global economies fluctuated. They remained unaware that a small group of researchers might be holding the key to humanity's most significant moment in history. Elena understood something profound that many of her colleagues had not yet realized. This wasn't just about responding to an alien transmission. This was an opportunity for humanity to redefine its place in the universe. The global scientific community had always believed that first contact would involve humanity proving its worth to advanced civilizations. Instead, this transmission suggested something entirely different. The aliens needed humanity, not as a junior partner or a primitive species to be studied, but as a potential solution to a problem that had defeated millennia of advanced technological development. As dawn broke, casting soft light through the facility's reinforced windows, Dr. Rodriguez made a decision. They would not approach this as a traditional research project. They would treat it as a collaborative challenge that required every ounce of human creativity, adaptability, and innovative thinking. Prepare a preliminary response, she told her team, but not a standard diplomatic communication. We're going to show them exactly what human potential looks like. The transmission began to take shape, a message that was part scientific analysis, part creative exploration, and entirely human. The universe was about to discover that sometimes the most unexpected solutions come from the most unlikely sources. The conference room felt more like a battlefield of ideas than a traditional meeting space. Dr. Marcus Chen stood before a diverse group of researchers, military strategists, and alien advisors, his presentation unlike anything they had ever witnessed. Holographic displays flickered with complex psychological models, breaking down communication systems in ways that defied conventional understanding. Where other species saw conflict as a linear challenge of technological superiority, Chen presented a multidimensional puzzle of adaptive communication, psychological resilience, and systemic vulnerability. We're not looking at a traditional military threat, Marcus explained, his voice calm and deliberate. The Void Swarm isn't just a technological entity. It's a complex adaptive system with communication patterns that resemble biological neural networks. The alien representatives shifted uncomfortably. Ambassador Koldar, who had traveled from the Galactic Council, leaned forward with an expression of equal parts skepticism and desperate hope. Her translation device struggled to capture the nuanced layers of Chen's presentation. Dr. Lucia Reyes, a cognitive neuroscientist, stepped forward with additional insights. Her research had explored human response mechanisms to extreme stress, trauma, and unexpected challenges. Our studies show that human psychological adaptation occurs at a rate that defies traditional predictive models, she explained. Where most species have rigid response systems, humans demonstrate an almost chaotic ability to reframe challenges. The presentation broke down the Void Swarm's communication structure into something more than a technological network. It was a living system with what humans would describe as psychological vulnerabilities. Chen's team had identified potential disruption points that went far beyond physical or technological interventions. A holographic model demonstrated how human communication strategies, including concepts like psychological warfare, mimetic communication, and adaptive narrative structures, could potentially create systemic disruptions in the Void Swarm's collective consciousness. Imagine communication as a form of complex warfare, Marcus continued. Not just the transmission of information, but the ability to create cognitive dissonance in a collective system. The military strategists in the room began to see the potential. Colonel Sarah Martinez, a veteran of multiple international conflict resolution missions, recognized the revolutionary nature of the approach. Traditional military doctrine focused on physical destruction. This was something entirely different, a way of engaging that targeted the very essence of the enemy's communication and decision-making processes. Dr. Elena Rodriguez joined the presentation, explaining how the initial alien transmission had already demonstrated an adaptive quality that suggested a deeper level of communication than simple information exchange. They reached out to us because we represent an unknown variable, she said, a species that doesn't follow predictable patterns of development or response. The alien advisors struggled with the concept. Their civilizations had developed sophisticated communication technologies over millennia, relying on precise, predictable systems of information exchange. Humans proposed something more fluid, more unpredictable, a form of communication that was alive, adaptive, and fundamentally creative. Lucia Reyes presented a series of case studies demonstrating human psychological resilience. Historical examples showed how humans could transform trauma into motivation, find hope in seemingly impossible situations, and develop innovative solutions under extreme pressure. The Void Swarm has never encountered a species like us, Marcus explained. Our greatest strength is our ability to reframe challenges, to find meaning and purpose in seemingly hopeless scenarios. The conference room fell silent. The implications were profound. This wasn't just a military strategy. It was a fundamental reimagining of how communication, conflict, and survival could be understood. Ambassador Koldar's translation device struggled to capture the full complexity of the presentation. But the message was clear. Humanity offered a completely unexpected approach to the galactic threat. As the presentation concluded, something shifted in the room. The alien representatives no longer saw humans as a primitive species. They saw potential saviors, a civilization capable of approaching a seemingly insurmountable challenge with a creativity and adaptability that defied conventional understanding. "We're not just offering a strategy," Marcus said in his final remarks. "We're presenting a new way of understanding conflict, communication, and survival." The Void Swarm was about to encounter something it could never have anticipated. A species that didn't just fight, but reimagined the very nature of conflict itself. The research facility hummed with an energy that defied traditional scientific boundaries. Dr. Aisha Okonkwo's laboratory was more than a workspace. It was a crucible of human potential, where the impossible began to take shape. Holographic displays danced with intricate molecular structures, representing a new class of adaptive nanotechnology that challenged everything known about material science. Teams from diverse backgrounds worked side by side. Quantum engineers, materials scientists, nanotechnology experts, and programmers from every corner of the globe. "We're not just building a technology," Aisha explained to the group of international and alien observers. "We're creating a living system that can learn, adapt, and respond in real time." The breakthrough came from an unexpected combination of disciplines. A team of biologists working alongside quantum computing experts had discovered a method of creating nanoscale structures that mimicked biological neural networks. These weren't just machines. They were thinking, adapting entities that could reconfigure themselves based on environmental challenges. Dr. Carlos Rodriguez, a materials engineer, demonstrated a prototype that seemed to defy the laws of traditional physics. A small metallic cube sat in the center of the room, its surface constantly shifting and changing. Where other species would have created rigid, predetermined defense systems, humans had developed something fundamentally different. "Watch carefully," Carlos said, his voice filled with barely contained excitement. He introduced a series of increasingly complex challenges to the nanoscale system: electromagnetic disruptions, extreme temperature variations, simulated physical attacks. With each challenge, the material responded, not with a preset protocol, but with a dynamic, adaptive approach that seemed almost alive. The alien observers were speechless. Ambassador Koldar leaned forward, her translation device struggling to capture the nuanced complexity of what she was witnessing. This was technology that behaved more like a living organism than a machine. Dr. Emily Chung, a quantum computing specialist, explained the underlying principle. "Traditional technological systems have fixed parameters," she said. "They respond to predefined scenarios. What we've created is a technology that doesn't just respond. It learns, evolves, and anticipates." The implications were profound. The adaptive nanotechnology could potentially reshape itself to counter the Void Swarm's attack methods in real time. No longer would defense be a reactive process. It would become a dynamic, intelligent response. International collaboration reached unprecedented levels. Competitive research institutes that had previously guarded their discoveries now shared information with remarkable openness. The global scientific community had found a common purpose that transcended traditional boundaries. "We're not just developing a technological solution," Aisha explained during a comprehensive briefing. "We're creating a new paradigm of technological interaction. These nanoscale systems don't just defend. They communicate, they learn, they grow." A series of test simulations demonstrated the true potential of the technology. When confronted with the initial data patterns from the Void Swarm's communication systems, the adaptive nanotechnology didn't just resist. It began to understand, to predict, to potentially counteract. Dr. Rodriguez pulled up a visualization that showed the nanoscale system's response to increasingly complex challenges. Where traditional technological systems would have failed, this human-developed solution demonstrated an almost organic ability to adapt and overcome. The alien representatives began to understand something profound. Humanity wasn't just offering a technological solution. They were presenting an entirely new approach to understanding technology itself, as a living, adaptive system rather than a static set of tools. As the demonstration concluded, the room was filled with a sense of something extraordinary. This wasn't just a technological breakthrough. It was a fundamental reimagining of how technology could interact with complex systemic challenges. Ambassador Koldar turned to her scientific attaché. "They'd done something remarkable," she said, her translation device capturing the mixture of awe and hope in her voice. "They've created a technology that thinks like a living being." The research facility continued to hum with activity. Outside, the world remained largely unaware that a small group of researchers might have just developed the key to saving not just humanity, but potentially all known civilizations. The Void Swarm was about to encounter a form of technological resistance it could never have anticipated. A solution that was more than a weapon. It was a living, learning, adaptive response to the most significant threat the galaxy had ever known. The primary combat simulation chamber felt more like a living organism than a traditional military facility. Colonel Sarah Martinez stood at the center of a holographic battlefield, her team a carefully selected group of specialists who represented the most adaptive minds humanity could offer. Global military strategists had assembled a unit unlike any in human history. Veterans from different conflict zones worked alongside cybersecurity experts, quantum warfare specialists, and psychological operations researchers. They were more than a military unit. They were a comprehensive problem-solving team designed to approach warfare with unprecedented creativity. "This isn't about conventional combat," Sarah explained to her multinational team. "We're dealing with a threat that doesn't understand traditional military engagement." The holographic displays came alive with complex data streams representing the Void Swarm's anticipated attack patterns. Where traditional military strategists would see an insurmountable challenge, Martinez and her team saw an intricate puzzle waiting to be solved. Dr. Jamal Kazemi, a neural interface expert, worked alongside tactical commanders to develop a revolutionary approach to coordinated response. Their communication systems were designed to be as fluid and adaptive as the threat they were facing. Each team member could instantaneously share tactical insights, creating a collective intelligence that moved faster than any single command structure. Initial simulations revealed something extraordinary. The human team didn't just respond to the Void Swarm's attack patterns. They anticipated, redirected, and fundamentally disrupted them. Traditional military doctrine relied on predetermined strategies. This team operated like a living, breathing ecosystem of tactical innovation. "We're not fighting," Sarah told her team during a critical briefing. "We're communicating through action. Each movement is a language the enemy has never encountered before." The adaptive nanotechnology developed by Dr. Okonkwo's team integrated seamlessly with their combat strategies. Defensive systems that could learn and reconfigure themselves in real time became an extension of human tactical thinking. It was more than technology supporting humans. It was a symbiotic relationship between human creativity and adaptive systems. Commander Elena Rodriguez, a specialist in psychological warfare, explained the deeper strategy. "The Void Swarm understands predictable patterns of resistance. We're going to give them something entirely unpredictable." Their approach broke every rule of traditional military engagement. Where other species would create rigid defensive lines, the human team developed a fluid, almost organic method of response. They would appear where the enemy least expected, disappear when anticipated, and strike with a level of creativity that defied conventional understanding. Global communication networks became more than just information highways. They transformed into a living, breathing tactical system that could adapt and respond faster than any centralized command structure. Each team member became both an individual operator and part of a collective intelligence. The first real-world engagement would be a test of everything they had developed. In the Epsilon Eridani system, humanity would show the galaxy something unprecedented, a form of military response that was more than just fighting. It was a comprehensive approach to conflict that treated warfare as a complex, adaptive communication. Psychological profiles of the team revealed something remarkable. These weren't just soldiers or specialists. They were problem solvers who viewed each challenge as an opportunity for creative resolution. Their diversity became their greatest strength, different perspectives coming together to create solutions that no single approach could imagine. "We're not just defending," Sarah told her team in their final briefing. "We're redefining the very concept of resistance." The simulation chamber hummed with an energy that suggested something profound was about to happen. Alien military observers watched in stunned silence as the human team prepared their approach. This was more than a military unit. It was a living demonstration of human potential. As the first tactical engagement approached, something became clear. The Void Swarm was about to encounter a form of resistance it could never have anticipated. A response that was more than technological. It was fundamentally human. Creativity, adaptability, hope. These would be humanity's most powerful weapons. The research symposium felt more like a gathering of cosmic explorers than traditional academics. Dr. James Wong stood at the center of a holographic presentation that challenged everything known about consciousness, adaptation, and survival. "We're not just facing a technological threat," James began, his voice carrying a quiet intensity that commanded attention. "We're encountering a fundamental misunderstanding of what it means to be alive, to adapt, to hope." Gathered around him were philosophers, scientists, alien researchers, and cognitive specialists from across the galaxy. The symposium represented an unprecedented moment of collaborative thinking, a collective attempt to understand the deeper implications of humanity's approach to the Void Swarm. Dr. Lucia Reyes, a cognitive neuroscientist, presented a groundbreaking analysis of human psychological resilience. Her research revealed something extraordinary about the human species, an ability to transform trauma into motivation that defied traditional understanding of psychological adaptation. "Look at these historical patterns," Lucia explained, holographic displays showing moments of human survival through seemingly impossible challenges. From ancient civilizations overcoming environmental catastrophes to modern societies rebuilding after devastating conflicts, humans demonstrated a remarkable capacity to find meaning in suffering. James Wong's philosophical framework proposed something revolutionary. Where most advanced civilizations viewed challenges as problems to be solved through pure technological or strategic means, humans approached difficulties as opportunities for growth, learning, and fundamental transformation. Consciousness is not a fixed state, James argued. It's a dynamic process of continuous adaptation and meaning-making. The alien researchers struggled to comprehend the depth of this perspective. Their civilizations had developed sophisticated technological and philosophical systems over millennia. Humans presented something entirely different, a view of existence that was fluid, creative, and fundamentally hopeful. Dr. Elena Rodriguez joined the presentation, explaining how human creativity emerged from complexity and uncertainty. "Our greatest innovations have always come from our ability to imagine beyond current limitations," she said. The holographic display showed a timeline of human achievements, from prehistoric tool-making to space exploration, that demonstrated an almost inexplicable capacity for transcending perceived boundaries. Ambassador Koldar, representing the Galactic Council, listened with a mixture of confusion and growing understanding. The human approach was not about conquering or defeating the Void Swarm. It was about understanding, adapting, and fundamentally transforming the nature of the conflict. Psychological profiles revealed a profound truth. Where other species saw the Void Swarm as an absolute threat, humans saw a complex system waiting to be understood. Their approach was not about destruction, but about communication, adaptation, and potential transformation. "We're not just offering a solution," James explained. We're presenting an entirely new way of understanding existence itself. The symposium explored the deeper philosophical implications. Human consciousness seemed to operate on a principle of continuous adaptation that was fundamentally different from other known species. They didn't just respond to challenges. They reimagined the very nature of those challenges. Dr. Kaunal Hassan, a quantum consciousness researcher, presented a mind-bending analysis of human cognitive flexibility. Traditional understanding suggests consciousness is fixed, he said. Our research shows human consciousness is more like a dynamic, adaptive network, constantly reorganizing, learning, growing. The alien researchers began to understand something profound. The human approach to the void swarm was not about military might or technological superiority. It was about a fundamental capacity to transform, to find meaning, to hope. Lucia Reyes shared a series of psychological case studies that demonstrated human resilience. Children who overcame extreme trauma. Communities that rebuilt after devastating natural disasters. Individuals who found purpose in seemingly hopeless situations. This is our true strength, James concluded. Not our technology, not our military capabilities, but our ability to find meaning, to hope, to transform. The symposium fell silent. Something remarkable had happened. The gathered researchers had witnessed more than a philosophical presentation. They had seen a fundamental reimagining of what it means to be alive, to survive, to grow. Outside the presentation hall, the universe continued its silent dance. But something had changed. Humanity had presented itself not as a species to be feared or conquered, but as a beacon of possibility, a living demonstration of hope's transformative power. The void swarm was about to encounter something it could never have anticipated, a species that didn't just survive, but found meaning in the very act of survival itself. The Epsilon Eridani system burned with the intensity of 1,000 dying stars. Colonel Sarah Martinez watched from the primary command center, her team a living network of adaptive intelligence that moved with a fluidity unlike any military engagement in galactic history. Holographic displays showed the void swarm's approach, a massive, seemingly incomprehensible wave of biomechanical destruction that had consumed entire civilizations. But today would be different. Humanity had prepared not just a defense, but a comprehensive reimagining of conflict itself. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's adaptive nanotechnology systems hummed to life, their molecular structures shifting and reconfiguring with each incoming threat. These were not traditional weapons, but living systems that could learn, adapt, and respond in milliseconds. Incoming primary wave, called out Lieutenant Marcus Chen, his neural interface connecting him to a global network of tactical response systems. Conventional defense protocols would fail in 2.7 seconds. But these were not conventional protocols. The first wave of the void swarm crashed against humanity's defensive line and encountered something entirely unexpected. Instead of a fixed resistance, they found a dynamic, living system that absorbed, redirected, and transformed their attack. Quantum communication networks developed by Dr. Kamil Hassan acted as more than communication channels. They were adaptive systems that could predict, redirect, and fundamentally disrupt the void swarm's attack patterns. Where traditional military systems would create rigid defensive lines, humans had developed a fluid, almost organic method of resistance. Ambassador Koldar watched from the Galactic Council's observation deck, her six-fingered hands gripping the edge of her console. The human approach defied everything she understood about military engagement. The battle wasn't just happening in physical space. It was a multidimensional conflict that operated on psychological, technological, and communicative levels simultaneously. Each human team member was both an individual operator and part of a collective intelligence that moved faster than any centralized command structure. Dr. Lucia Rice's psychological warfare algorithms worked in perfect synchronization with the adaptive nanotechnology. They weren't just defending. They were communicating, probing, understanding the very nature of the void swarm's collective consciousness. "We're not fighting," Sarah told her team through their neural link. We're having a conversation that the enemy has never experienced before. The Void Swarm's attack patterns began to falter. For the first time in its existence, the collective threat encountered a form of resistance that didn't just react. It anticipated, transformed, and fundamentally challenged the very nature of conflict. Holographic displays showed something extraordinary. The adaptive systems weren't just defending against the attack. They were learning from it, understanding it, finding ways to communicate with a threat that had previously been considered incomprehensible. Redirecting primary attack vectors, Marcus announced. The holographic display showed how the human defensive systems were doing more than blocking. They were fundamentally reshaping the incoming threat. Dr. Rodriguez's nanotechnology began to demonstrate something unprecedented. The defensive systems weren't just responding to the Void Swarm. They were beginning to understand it, to communicate with it on a level that went beyond traditional technological interaction. The Galactic Council observers watched in stunned silence. This wasn't a military engagement. It was a complex, multidimensional dialogue that challenged everything known about conflict, communication, and survival. Hours passed. What should have been a moment of total destruction became something else entirely. The Void Swarm's attack began to lose coherence, its collective consciousness encountering a form of resistance it could not comprehend. "We're breaking through," Sarah said, her voice calm and focused, not by destroying, but by understanding. The final moments of the conflict were unlike anything in galactic history. The human team didn't defeat the Void Swarm through superior firepower or technological might. They engaged it through a comprehensive, adaptive approach that transformed the very nature of the conflict. As the last energy signatures of the Void Swarm began to dissipate, something remarkable became clear. Humanity had done more than defend itself. It had demonstrated a fundamentally new way of understanding existence, conflict, and survival. The universe watched, and everything changed. The diplomatic hall in the Galactic Council chambers felt different. Gone was the rigid formality that had defined intergalactic relations for millennia. Sunlight filtered through crystalline windows, casting prismatic reflections on the assembled representatives from thousands of civilizations. Ambassador Koldar stood at the center of the gathering, her presence both familiar and fundamentally changed. The conflict with the Void Swarm had transformed everything, not just militarily, but philosophically, culturally, and fundamentally. "We have been wrong," she began, her words translated across countless linguistic matrices. "Our understanding of existence, of survival, of communication, all of it has been challenged by humanity." The human delegation was small but significant. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, Colonel Sarah Martinez, Dr. James Wong, and a handful of others who had been central to humanity's response sat quietly. They were not conquerors. They were interpreters of a new galactic paradigm. Dr. Rodriguez presented the comprehensive analysis of their encounter with the Void Swarm. It was more than a military report. It was a profound exploration of adaptive systems, communication, and the nature of collective intelligence. The assembled representatives listened with a mixture of awe and humility. "We didn't defeat the Void Swarm," Elena explained. "We communicated with it. We understood it. We transformed it." The galactic records would show something unprecedented. Humanity had approached an existential threat not as a problem to be eliminated, but as a complex system to be understood. Their adaptive technologies, psychological insights, and philosophical approach had done what millennia of military might could not. Colonel Martinez shared insights into their tactical approach. It wasn't about destruction, but about comprehensive engagement. Each defensive strategy was a form of communication, each technological innovation a method of understanding. Dr. James Wong presented the philosophical implications. Humanity had demonstrated that consciousness was not a fixed state, but a dynamic, adaptive process. Their approach to the Void Swarm revealed something profound about the nature of existence itself. The alien representatives began to understand the true depth of humanity's contribution. It wasn't about technological superiority or military might. It was about a fundamental capacity for empathy, understanding, and transformation. Ambassador Koldar recalled the moments of first contact, how they had approached humanity as a last resort, seeing them as a primitive species. Now they recognized something entirely different, a civilization with a unique capacity for hope, creativity, and adaptability. "We came to humans as a desperate last choice," she admitted. "We discovered something far more important, a new way of understanding existence." The diplomatic hall became a place of profound reflection. Representatives from civilizations that had existed for tens of thousands of years were learning from a species that had only recently begun exploring its own solar system. Dr. Lucia Rice presented psychological studies that demonstrated humanity's remarkable resilience, not just as individuals, but as a collective species. Their ability to find meaning, to hope, to transform in the face of seemingly insurmountable challenges was unprecedented. The Galactic Council began to redesign its fundamental approach to conflict, communication, and collective intelligence. Humanity had shown them something revolutionary, that the most powerful form of resistance is understanding, not destruction. Technological exchanges began to flow, but these were not simple weapon designs or defensive systems. They were collaborative explorations of adaptive intelligence, of communication, of the very nature of consciousness. As the diplomatic session concluded, something had fundamentally changed. Humanity was no longer seen as a young, developing species. They were recognized as a critical component of galactic civilization, a unique perspective that could transform understanding itself. Outside the diplomatic hall, the universe continued its silent dance, but something was different. The boundaries between species, between technological systems, between ways of understanding had been forever altered. Ambassador Koldar looked at the human delegation. They were not conquerors. They were not saviors. They were something far more important. They were interpreters of a new possibility. Humanity had shown the galaxy that the most powerful force in existence is not technological might or military power. It is the capacity to understand, to adapt, to hope. And everything had changed.